Welcome everybody to our last Parent Connect of the year. I'm Crystal Overfelt, the Conscious Discipline Trainer here in our program. And tonight we are going to be focusing on how to teach children new and needed skills and how to help them to learn from their mistakes. And so, just like every other time, the session is going to be broken down into three smaller sessions. And the first one is just breathe. And we're going to learn a couple more fun breathing techniques that will help children to calm themselves in a fun way.
Hey, Crystal, can I interrupt you for 2 seconds?
Yes, you can. Yeah.
Can you sit square to your computer because it's cutting out? It thinks that part of your speech is background noise and it's cutting you out some.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Would you like me to start over?
I think we're okay.
Okay.
We're good.
So we're going to learn a couple more breathing techniques under Just Breathe. Then Be There is all about connecting and the willingness and cooperation that follows having connection with one another. And then lastly, Me First. And that's all about practicing and modeling and teaching the skills that I want my child to learn, because we know social emotional development happens through their experience. And so today we're going to focus on, like I said, the two last conscious discipline skills, and they are positive intent and consequences. So let's go ahead and let's breathe. And so I'm going to show you a couple of our fan favorites in Head Start. One is Spidey breathing, Spider-Man breathing, and the other is Elsa breathing. We've learned several of the standard conscious discipline breathing strategies like the balloon and the pretzel and the star. But once you realize that it's all about getting those deep cleansing breaths that help our bodies to calm, you can make up all sorts of fun ways to do it. And a lot of times children will make up ones, and teachers make them up from any fun character or item. And so first, we're going to do Spidey breathing. And with this, you would want to get your little Spidey hands ready and just hold them out in front of you. And whenever you are breathing in and inhaling through your nose, you're going to bring your arms up to by your shoulders. And then whenever you breathe out your mouth and exhale, you're going to shoot your web. So do it once with me, just to humor me, okay? So we're going to breathe in and out. The kids love that. And then for our Frozen enthusiast, we have Elsa breathing, and it's much the same way. You're going to put your hands together in fist out in front of you, and you're going to bring them up to your shoulders like you're shivering when you breathe in. And then after you do that, you're going to exhale and let it go. Okay, so do that one with me. We're going to breathe in and let it go. So those are really fun ones that the kids love to do. But just remember that breathing is all about de-stressing the body by getting oxygen in and angst out. And 3 deep breaths can help to cut the stress response in half. So remember, when you get triggered, to just breathe, okay? Next, we're going to talk about our section on Be There, and that is all about the cooperation that follows connections. Connections on the outside, when we're interacting with somebody, actually builds connections on the inside. And those connections that are made on the inside, they literally wire our brain for self-control and willingness. And how many of us as parents or teachers would love to see more self-control and willingness? And where that comes from is connection that is made when we're making eye contact, when we're having touch, and when we're really present with them in a playful situation. Those are the things that build connection. And the key is understanding that connections that we make on the outside actually build connections on the inside. So whenever you're playing with your child and interacting with them, really with them in a fun situation, you're actually connecting with them out here, but there are neural connections. The brain is actually making these connections, these neural connections in your brain. So when you do that, you're actually building your child's brain. And so I know one of the things that we offer through our program is Vroom. I'm sure you've been introduced to that, but it gives you a plethora of ways that you can connect with your child because those connections are life-changing because they are building your child's brain. And so we're going to learn a couple of other love rituals that we do in our program. One is row, row, row your boat. I'm sure you're familiar with that one. And the other one is Humpty Dumpty. And row, row, row your boat is a great one for teaching children how to play together in a safe and appropriate way. And once they do it with you, it's important for them to learn how to do that with one another. And but this family took it to a whole nother level and included their whole family in the experience. So I'm going to play this little video for you.
Ready? Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. Uh-oh, there's a storm. Let's keep each other safe. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. Oh, we made it. Ready? Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream.
Looks like the dog, family pet, tried to get into the boat as well. And here is Humpty Dumpty. And this one is in a classroom. This is a
Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the princesses and all the kids Humpty and Humpty together again. Yay! Now we're gonna go fast. Now we're gonna go fast. Ready? Here we go. Hang on. Are you hanging on to her? So she'll be safe. We gotta keep Gigi safe too. I'm gonna hang on to both of you like this. Okay, ready? We're gonna go fast. Humpty Dumpty down the hall. Humpty Dumpty.
But you can see the joy that that brought, just those interactions. And we just, sometimes those are things that just get kind of missed in the busyness of life, but they make a huge difference, not only in relationship, but in building a level of cooperation. Because the more connected you feel, the more cooperative you want to be with one another. So take those time, do some of those fun love rituals. Don't worry about getting the words right. The whole point is connection and fun. So I hope that you'll try a couple of those ideas that we've shared. And lastly, we are going to get to answering the parent question for tonight for this session. How do I teach my child missing skills, and how do I help them learn from their mistakes? And just like every other skill that we've talked about through our sessions, it all begins with us, because we know that children learn through their experiences, And so we want to be modeling and teaching those through what we do. And so we're going to look at 3 different points tonight. The first one is the powers of love and intention. And that is all about seeing the best in others. Whenever we can see the best in others, it actually enables us to see and perceive things differently. And whenever we see things differently, the reason that's so important is that we respond differently. Whenever we see things differently, we respond to them differently. And that can lead to some amazing results when it comes to behavior. And we're going to dig more into that. Then the next point is we're going to talk about the skill of positive intent. And positive intent is all about teaching missing skills. It's seeing that there are skills that are missing, and rather than punishing a child for not having the skills, it's all about teaching them what we do want. And we do that through a strategy called ACT, and we'll dig into what that is. Teaching and practicing skills rather than automatically punishing teaches us to focus on what we want rather than what we don't want. It is so easy when it comes to behaviors to identify what we don't want. But we have to learn how to pivot from what I don't want to teaching what do I want them to do? Because I can say don't. And they may not do that thing I said don't, but they still may not be doing what I want them to do. So we want to take the time to pivot from what we don't want to what we do want and teaching them how to do that. And lastly, we're going to talk about the skill of consequences. Consequences help children to learn from their mistakes. And we're also going to learn that there's more than one kind of consequence, and when we need to use them is going to depend on a couple of things, and we're going to dig into what those things are. So we're going to start with the power of love. When we start with the power of love, we see that it leads us, it changes our intention for our interactions with our children. The power of love asks us to see the best in others, even when their behavior is inappropriate or hurtful. It's a choice that we have to see the best or the worst in people or situations. And our children need us to see the best. I'm going to give you a quick example. An easy example of this is, let's say you're driving down the highway and somebody speeds by you and whips their car in front of you. Do you think, idiot, idiot driver? Or do you think, wow, he must really have us someplace important to go? I can tell you, I probably would be an idiot driver. That would be my automatic response, right? But what love asks us to do, the power of love asks us to do, is not to always assume the worst about a situation or a person. Because the truth is, we really don't know what people's motivations are. Most of the time, we're taking our best guess at why people do the things that they do. But the power of love asks us not to assume the worst case scenario and to guess something positive rather than negative. Because when we assume negative intent, it preps us to be defensive and distressed, and basically it stresses out our own system. When we assume positive intent, it preps us to basically, it soothes our system rather than kicking us into upset. I know the other day I saw a friend of mine and her husband driving down 20th, and I hadn't seen her for a couple of weeks, so I zipped in behind them and we got to range line and I tapped on my horn trying to get their attention. Well, her husband did not appreciate me tapping on my horn because he didn't know who I was. And so whenever I followed them to where they turned off, he was like, and now this person's following me. And then they see that it's me. And he's like, oh my word, you know, where he was thinking he was about ready to throw down on me. And I'm like, I just wanted to say hi, right? So sometimes we assign positive intent or negative intent when it's not there. There's no tiger chasing you. It's just me. I wanted to say hi, right? And so we make up other people's intent. But if we're going to do that, isn't it better to make it positive, because it's going to have a better effect on us? We're going to be able to handle things better when we don't assume the worst. And so maybe that manic driver is rushing to the hospital to see their first child be born, or maybe they're late for an important job interview, or maybe they're just trying to catch up with you and they want to say hi. So what those glasses, whenever we change our lens to that of love, it asks us to assume positive intent in situations and towards people, even whenever their behavior doesn't measure up. Because another reason the power of love is so important is because with children, we have to see them differently before they can behave differently. And the reason for that is because how I see them directly affects how I respond to them. Now, hang with me here, because sometimes this is a little hard to wrap your mind around. But it's the difference between seeing a child as a problem or seeing that a child is having a problem. If I see the child as the problem, I'm automatically either going to attack, punish, or label them. He's just a brat. He's always does that thing just to get on my last nerve. And we attribute this negative intent to all of the behaviors that are upsetting to us. But we have to remember what we learned in conscious discipline, that all behavior, whether it's appropriate or inappropriate, is a form of communication. And whenever I see it differently, it enables me to see that behavior that is inappropriate or is causing conflict. I can see that behavior as a call for help. I can see that, hey, there's a missing skill. That's what this behavior is telling me. That if I see the child is having that problem, then I'm willing to help them solve it. But if I just see them as the problem, then we're not going to get anywhere with changing behavior. If I see a troublemaker when I look at a kid, then I'm likely going to raise a troublemaker. Whenever we use the power of love to see a child, instead of, he's a troublemaker, I could say, he's having a hard time. He's coming into a new class. He's coming into a new school. We can come up with ways to help him cope, and we can come up with ways to help him make friends. So it's the difference between seeing the child as the problem or the problem as the problem, and helping them with positive intent is huge. Here's another example. If we see a toddler throwing a fit, we're likely to raise a child that believes that they're spoiled. If we use the power of love and see this toddler who is frustrated because all of a sudden mom is spending so much time with this new infant sibling, then we'll see that, there are ways to strengthen my connection with my toddler and understand that it feels like that this new sibling has completely taken over their place in the world. It's asking us to say, what does it feel like to be that child right now? And how can I help them with learning a skill to be able to cope with what they're going through? Another example that they give is, if we see a child who can't do anything right, we're likely to raise a person who believes he can't do anything right. And so when we use the power of love and see a child who needs extra reminders to get things done properly, we will problem solve ways to create routines and other supports to help them succeed, because we realize the child is not the problem. They're having a problem and they need our help to solve it. Children cannot act differently unless we see them differently, because the way we see colors children's worlds and our worlds. The power of love asks us always to strive to see the best in others. The power of love enables us to get to a higher place and see things differently. And when we can do that, when we can see it differently, we can help the child and help them to move up to a place where we can solve these problems together by teaching them new skills and helping them. So a child cannot act differently until they are seen differently. And that brings us to the skill of positive intent. Positive intent is a conscious choice to teach instead of punish. Teaching allows children to learn from their mistakes. First, we use the power of love to attribute a positive intent to them, and it keeps us in a more calm state. Positive intent allows a child to make a mistake and recover. And know that if I make a mistake, it is not the end. I can recover from this. And every time you learn any skill, you're not going to be good at it in the beginning. We're all going to have oopses. We're all going to fail at something anytime we're learning, because we get better at doing something the more that we practice it. And so whenever we have positive intent, it helps us to focus on solutions instead of placing blame or making judgments. And so whenever a child misbehaves, have you ever asked yourself, is this a call for help? Do they need my help with this? Because that behavior might be telling me, I don't know what to do other than what I'm doing. I'm not holding out on you. Nobody's taught me the skill. They've told me to stop doing what I'm doing, but nobody's ever taken the time to tell me, what do I do in this situation? So that behavior is telling us, help, teach me what to do, rather than just telling me what not to do. We must see children differently, especially our most challenging children, before they can act differently. So offering positive intent to children fosters this integration and a willingness to reflect on and change our behavior. Whenever you know somebody's got your back and they're not going to attack you or punish you for your weakness, it opens you up to being willing to learn. And we do that teaching through this process called ACT. Whenever we see a missing skill and it can identify that the child needs help in learning a new skill in a social situation, then we're going to first, A is for acknowledge what the child's intent was or what their desire was, by saying, you wanted the cup. As simple as that. C stands for clarify what skill to use. When you want the cup, tap me on the shoulder and say, cup, please. Don't grab it. T, take the time to practice. And just after you tell them what to do, say, let's practice it. Because what happens when you practice something with your child, you're turning it into pretend. There isn't a threat there. There's the challenge of learning the new skill, but we're doing it in play. So there isn't the stress of the situation. So let's do it now for practice. And a reminder about learning new skills is they say it takes 2,000 times in context for a child to learn a new skill, but it cuts it down to like 400 times when it's done in play. That's why pretend play is so huge in a child's ability to learn new skills. And so ACT is all about acknowledging what they wanted, clarifying what to do to get it, and then taking the time to practice it with them. So the thing about it is, because it takes so many times to coach a child through learning that skill, making it a habit, making it something that they've mastered. We're going to have a whole lot of opportunities to say everything from, cough in your elbow to tap me on the shoulder when you want my attention, a whole lot. And so we also in our classroom use something that's called a celebration center. And with the celebration center, we just take time to celebrate and acknowledge and see and speak about children's accomplishments, whether they're small or large, when it comes to mastering new skills. Whenever we celebrate each other and see the best in them and see their efforts towards, mastering different skills, it helps to keep everyone encouraged. It encourages them and it encourages us. How good does it feel when somebody sees something of value or good in you and celebrates that about you? A simple "you did it" can have a huge impact on a child or an adult's confidence and willingness to try new things. You almost had it. You're just about there. That sort of encouragement can go a lot further than seeing what you did wrong. And so get ready to have 100 little mini celebrations all day long as you put on that lens of positive intent that is going to be encouraging to your children. You can find out more about ACT on the positive intent handout that you can get from your family resource specialist at your center. It spells it out where you have that language right there in front of you. Sometimes whenever I'm trying to learn a new strategy, I'll hang it on my wall or put it on my thumbtack it up so that I can see it on a regular basis. So that will be there for you. And next, we're going to talk about the power of intent. The second power that we're talking about tonight is directly tied to positive intent because it changes our intention from punishing to realizing that mistakes are an opportunity to learn. If you're going to learn anything, you're going to make mistakes. And when we grasp onto that power, we begin to see that learning comes from trying and failing. And our job as adults is to create an environment where not only are children safe, but they also feel physically and emotionally safe enough to learn, to try and fail and try and fail until they eventually learn. Our intention is powerful in this endeavor, and the intent we choose will lead us in different directions. And so it looks a little bit like this. And I think I probably experienced all of these as a parent, not even knowing what I was doing. Because sometimes I had punitive intent. The goal is to punish by inflicting pain or suffering for the action. It is like, you're going to do the time for the crime. And I ended up a lot of times punishing my children when I hadn't taught them the skill that they needed to succeed. Then there's permissive intent. I fell into this one a lot, where the goal is to save or rescue by saving the child from the discomfort of their choices or actions. There was so many times I would give them one more chance because it's like, I don't want you to suffer. I know what it feels like. I don't want you to suffer. I don't want you to do that. So I'd always save them rather than let them have the consequence of their choice. And we end up undermining them when we do that. But positive intent, the goal of positive intent is to teach the child to learn a better way by being able to reflect and take ownership. Misbehavior is a caution sign that points to skills that children are missing. Punishing behavior doesn't stop it. The only thing that will change behavior is to teach a new skill to replace the troublesome behavior. I have to replace that by teaching you a new skill. And sometimes in order to do that, we have to reframe our intent from negative to positive, because when we're experiencing upset, we are likely to focus on what we don't want and attribute negative intent to others. So I have to ask myself, if I'm upset and the answer is yes, then I need to take a minute and reframe the situation. I need to take that breath and actively calm myself and think, do I have negative intent, or can I positively reframe this? Negative intent would be, some children are just mean. But by reframing that in a positive way, I could say, some children really need social skills, because that's something that I can do something about. I can teach you social skills. But if I just think you're mean, then I'm not going to be willing to teach you. Negative intent would say, she's just plain lazy. But I could reframe that positively by saying, she just doesn't know how to get started. I need to help think of ways to help her with her initiative. That's something I can do. A negative intent would be, he sure knows how to push my buttons. Positive reframing would say, I'm going to breathe, calm myself down so that I can help. What positive intent does is it makes me willing. It gives me the ability to teach and problem solve rather than punish children for skills they haven't learned or developed yet. You may have experienced that yourself. And that brings us to consequences. Learning from the consequences of our action requires us to be able to do two things. First, we must reflect on the choices and the outcomes that we have made. This is the choice I've made, and this is the outcome from that choice. And then we have to take ownership. We have to be willing to own our choices and the feelings that they generate within us, rather than looking to someone else to blame. For an adult, an example could be, I was eating that whole pepperoni pizza in alignment with my goal of losing weight. For a child, it would be, was throwing that sippy cup at you helpful in his goal of getting more to drink? That is reflecting. Ownership is, I feel disappointed that I've delayed my weight loss goal, so maybe next time I'll eat a couple of pieces instead of the whole pizza. And for the child, they felt frustrated about running out of milk. But what we want to do is, with that reflection, to make those choices. As an adult, I'm going to limit myself to 2 pieces next time. For the child, I'm going to teach them the skill that if they want more to drink, they can tap me on the shoulder and say, more please. Something so simple that a lot of times we feel like they should know that, but they're learning. Everything is new. And so a lot of times we give children a lot of don't, stop, quit, but we need to take the time to teach that skill that they need in order to be successful and do things that will help them reach their goals in a appropriate manner. And so consequences are tools, and they are tools that we use to motivate children to learn new skills or to learn the skills that they already possess. It can be difficult to watch children feel uncomfortable due to the results of their choices. But this discomfort, coupled with our authentic empathy, is what helps them to manage those emotions, and it's essential to the learning process. So we're going to look at two kinds of consequences. There are natural consequences, and these consequences motivate children to learn new skills. And then there are logical consequences, and those motivate children to use the skills that they have. And we're going to take a little bit of a closer look at that, because a lot of times what we do with certain behaviors is we're looking for an answer. We'll like Google it and say, how do I get my child to go to bed? I need the protocol. Or how do I get my child to quit hitting? What's the protocol? And the answer to that is, it depends. There's not one formula to accomplish the goal for every child, because it depends on the child's age, it depends on their development, and it depends on the skills that they have. So for us to know which way to respond to a child, we have to ask this question. And the question is, does the child have the skill? If the child does not have the skill, the natural consequence is for us to teach the child that skill. If they don't have the skill, no amount of punishment is going to change the behavior. And so I have to ask, does the child have the skill? And if they don't have the skill, then I want to use that formula that I just taught you, ACT, in order to teach that new skill. And here is a couple of examples of what that would sound like. You wanted the toy, so you grabbed it. You didn't know what else to do. You can throw in a little empathy there, some positive intent. You may not grab. Grabbing hurts. When you want the toy, tap your brother on the shoulder, wait for him to look at you, and say, turn, please. That's the skill you want him to use. Or you could say, you wanted to do it yourself, so you pushed me away. You may not push. Pushing hurts. And if they're younger, you could tell them, when you want to do it yourself, say, I do it. Or if they're older and when you want to do it yourself, say, I can do it, Mom. We're giving them the language. We're teaching them the skill that when you're in this situation and you want something, here's what to do. And then we're going to coach them and remind them of those skills until they master those skills, so that when I'm not around, they have the skill to use in that social situation. And again, just like with the positive intent, there's also a handout on consequences that breaks this down for you. And it also provides a visual routine for children that teaches them that very skill: to tap, wait for someone to look at you, and then ask, can I play with you? Instead of, going and jumping on somebody. I'm giving you a skill in order to interplay, or whatever it is. So we want to make sure that we are teaching children skills on a level that they can understand and practice before we assume that they should know better. And here's a hint about teaching any skill to a child. I tell teachers a lot of times, if you want to teach a child, tap, wait, ask, and whenever you want his attention, you tap him on the shoulder, say his name, and wait for him to look at you, because we learn things by experiencing them. So they're going to learn those skills a lot quicker if they see us modeling them towards them as well. And then secondly, when we ask ourselves the question, does the child have the skill? And the answer is yes, they do have the skill. They've got the skill mastered. They know exactly what to do in this situation. That's when we use a logical consequence. Have any of you ever been there? I've been in situations where I knew what I should have done, but I sure didn't feel like doing it, right? And so logical consequences are those things that motivate us to use the skills that we have. And that looks like this. There are 3 R's and 1 big E to logical consequences. And the first one is that your consequence needs to be related to the child's behavior. If the goal is keeping the blocks off of the floor, the consequence needs to be related to the blocks being off limit for a period of time, not that the child's going to lose dessert. Losing dessert doesn't have anything to do with the blocks. So you want your consequence to be related to the behavior. Second thing, it needs to be respectful. Consequences, the consequence is respectful in terms of the consequence itself, not something that's going to be humiliating or shaming to the child, and also in the way it's delivered. How we deliver a consequence is a lot of times as important, because we know when somebody feels as badly about it as we do, right? And can give it to us with some empathy. But I know you've probably seen or heard about parents like putting their children on the side of the road with a big sign that details, what they did wrong. And that's not a respectful way to give a consequence. None of us want our worst failures aired in front of the world. And so we want to give consequences that are respectful and are done in a loving way. And the third R is reasonable. A consequence is reasonable, meaning that it is something that a child can actually do. It makes sense in terms of the severity and duration. Often we'll say things in frustration like, give it to me now, or you will never play that game on my phone again. Well, we all know that that's not going to happen. The next time the child wants to play a game and the parent wants a minute of quiet, that phone's going to come back out, right? So if we don't give reasonable consequences, then we're undermining ourselves, because they know that you're not going to follow through with it. So empty threats undermine our purpose, and so does overly harsh ones. And then the last E of a logical consequence is that when a child blows it, and they will blow it just like we do, we must follow through with consequences, but with an ample dose of empathy. Consequences that are followed by empathy result in them being able to reflect and take ownership for their actions and change. Lectures that say, I told you so, or what did you think would happen? Those aren't helpful. They actually push a child back in their brainstem and make it impossible for them to take ownership and reflect on what they've done and what the outcome of that was. And so a logical consequence, this is how you frame a logical consequence. You set a limit, and then you say, you have a choice to be helpful or hurtful. You can choose to be helpful or safe, and this will happen, consequence A. Or you can choose to be hurtful or unsafe, and then this will happen, consequence B. And then you ask them for clarity. Now, what is going to happen if you choose A or B, to make sure they really understand what you're saying? And then you see what happens. If they choose to be helpful, all right, great. But if they choose to be hurtful, that's whenever you have to follow through with those reasonable, respectful, related consequences. If the child chooses to be hurtful or unsafe. And one of the hardest parts about giving consequences is the upset that follows it. That's why we follow it up with empathy. I know it's hard, but it's my job to keep you safe. And this is what we're going to do so that you're safe, and so is everyone else. You again can look at the handout. It goes into and spells out some of these natural and logical consequences. I'll give you one more quick example of setting a limit. Let's say a child hits someone. You can say, you may not hit. Hitting hurts. If you choose to play safely, you can continue to play with your brother. But if you hit your brother again, you're going to play in your room until it's time for dinner or whatever is appropriate for that age. And now what's going to happen if you hit your brother again? Make sure you have that clarity and then follow through with that logical consequence. Consequences, effective consequences teach children to examine their behavior, reflect on its impact, and make changes until they're reaching their goals. Ineffective consequences are applied again and again without any behavior changes. And so we want to make sure that we are asking ourselves the question, does the child have the skill? Because if the child doesn't have the skill, my job is to teach them this and coach them with that skill. If they do have the skill, then logical consequences will help them to realize that I need to use the skills that I have. And I want to encourage you again to be sure to check out both of these handouts on positive intent and consequences, because it will give you the language. It will break down those 3 R's and E to healthy logical consequences. And that is what we have for tonight. I hope that through attending this series that you have found some things that you can take away and begin to practice in your home. And I just want to tell you thank you for joining us through these sessions. And as always, we are wishing you well in your parenting journey.